wonders in all the arts. I am sounding a battle cry. Let us form a holy militia for the salvation of idealism. We will build the temple of beauty, for the artist is a priest, a king, a mage. For art is a mystery, the only true empire, the great miracle.
In the same way people were expected to adapt to the birth of mass media, periodical press, the telephone, and other advancements at the turn of the 20th century, today's society is made to conform to the ever-changing and evolving technology of our own age. With the rise of artificial intelligence, now more than ever, these rapid developments direct how we live our day-to-day lives and interact with the world around us. Only until very recently, one had to type one's own emails, research subjects using their own discernment, and communicate with real human beings to acquire information. Now, with a quick command or prompt, these things and much more can be accomplished for us by using AI. While this new technology has great potential toward the growth of medical procedures, simplifying difficult tasks for the handicapped and elderly, advancing military defense solutions, and beyond, there is one area where it is greatly thriving that, according to certain occult masters of the past, is particularly detrimental on a spiritual level. This is that of the arts. Josephin Péladan, who lived from 1858 to 1918, was a French occultist, esoteric novelist, and art critic. Also known as Tsar Merodach, he was a prominent figure in the French occult revival and fin de siècle French symbolism movement. Originally an initiate of the Toulouse Rosicrucian order, he collaborated with important occult figures such as Stanislas de Guaita and Gérard Uncas, also known as Pappus, in the Kabbalistic Order of the Rose Cross. This led to the creation of his own Order of the Rose Croix of the Temple and the Grail, the visionary aim of which was to regenerate society by reconnecting humanity with its divine origins through art. Between 1892 and 1897, he organized the Salons de la Rose Croix. These were influential events that blended esoteric philosophy with artistic expression. Péladan developed an esoteric initiatory system based on views that held the creative process as the ultimate sacred act. He proclaimed art to be the process of mediating between the physical and the metaphysical. To him, it was the act of giving form to the intangible. In his view, the ideal was the sublime, ethereal aspect of creation, which needed to be given a body to inhabit to become perceptible in the material world, these bodies being works of art created by humans. Péladan once said,
"What is art? Human creation. From the forest path and from the cavern to the cathedral, human work appears colossal. What is a figure such as the Sphinx or the winged bull with a human face, if not a philosophical combination of natural motifs for the manifestation of a human idea? From the cat to the Sphinx, from the savage bull to the genius that guards the temple threshold, through quasi-divine operations, the artist raises himself to the level of creator."
Incorporated into Péladan's work and beliefs was a unique cosmology which stated that the world was created by angels and the androgynous primordial man was an immortal but self-unaware individual. In his rewriting of Genesis, the angels sought to give the androgyne, their most perfect creation, the abilities to commune with the divine. And God forbade this act since it went against natural law. The reinterpreted story tells that the apple of knowledge was given to the primordial man through love and kindness by the angels. Through this act, he received a glimpse of self-awareness and, in turn, was punished along with the angels. The androgyne was separated into male and female, two unequal beings bearing different attributes, while the angels were sentenced to mate with humans on Earth, assisting in their spiritual evolution until they could eventually reunite with their original androgynous form. Péladan saw the creative process as the ultimate sacred act because it brought humanity closer to reintegration with its divine origins, according to this cosmology. His theory stated that the human form was created by the angels tracing the silhouettes of their own shadows, an act that is emulated by humans when they create art. During his age, as the Industrial Revolution and the scientific worldview dominated Western society, Péladan regarded these technological advancements as rampant materialism and futile decadence. If we view today's current state of the arts in this regard, we can see the association of AI as being against all Péladan stood for. Péladan declared art as that which reunites all the perfections that the spirit can conceive of on a given theme. If we are to allow transhuman machines to interfere in the creation process, we degrade the sacred act and participate only as suggestive instructors rather than actual creators. How then are the perfections created by the machine conceived by the human spirit? Though a shadow of the conceptualized idea may be realized, the spirit cannot account for that which is generated by a machine. The human connection is diminished to nearly nothing, and therefore this cannot be called true art. When one draws a line on paper, that line is simply a means to bring forth the body containing the ideal. However, it is through that line, drawn by the artist himself, that the act executed by the angels to create man is emulated and the embodiment is achieved. This must be part of the process, along with specific esoteric principles incorporating intensity, subtlety, harmony, and symbolic expression to create what Péladan called ensouled art. For if, according to his rule, the ideal conceived by the artist implementing these principles is what ultimately gives art its ensoulment, this process would be totally corrupted if a transhuman medium were used to interfere in it. Let us further explore the dangers of transhumanism in art by analyzing the work of a more widely known occultist who lectured on this very subject. But first, I want to take a moment to recognize the work of author Sasha Chaitow. For those who wish to learn more about Péladan, I highly recommend her book, Son of Prometheus, The Life and Work of Josephin Péladan. I'll show a link to that in the video description. And since this has become a somewhat controversial topic, I must say that though I've referenced Sasha's work for many of the things I've said in this lecture regarding Josephin Péladan, the conclusions made here about how the use of AI in art misaligns with his theories are, of course, my own.
Forces will generate strange machines, which will be of the sort that will take over the work of human beings, because they will contain within them a certain force of intelligence. Large temptations will emanate from these machine animals produced by people themselves, and it will be the task of spiritual science that explores the cosmos to ensure these temptations do not exert a damaging influence on human beings.
These prophetic words were spoken by the German Rosicrucian initiate Rudolf Steiner in 1917. Though known as a spiritual scientist first and foremost, he was also an architect, sculptor, and painter who put a strong focus on art throughout his vast catalog of works. Steiner held the belief that true art is an expression of man's search for a relationship with the spiritual. He often went into great detail explaining how each art form uniquely worked through the soul. For example, he said that by experiencing color inwardly as a soul event through the act of painting, the soul moves freely within the spiritual realms and about the cosmos. In the case of architecture, the soul strives to create the forms it needs to experience when it gazes into the body from outside of it. As for sculpture, he describes it as the soul bringing the laws of the etheric body into physical existence. Music, according to Steiner, is the soul experiencing the earthly vibrations taking place in its own soul nature. It is the soul's hidden adaptation of the inner harmonic, melodic, cosmic essence from which it was shaped. On music, Steiner said,
"Man himself is the world's most perfect instrument, and he can experience artistically the tones of an external musical instrument to the degree that he feels this connection between the sounding of strings of a new instrument, for example, and his own coursing blood and nerve fibers. In other words, man, as nerve man, is inwardly built up of music, and feels it artistically to the degree that he feels its harmonization with the mystery of his own musical structure."
While Steiner, like Péladan, held the creation of art as a sacred act, he also warned that it, along with humanity itself, would one day be threatened by a future super technology mirroring human consciousness. In a rare lecture given in 1917, Steiner spoke of what has come to be known as the electronic doppelganger. According to Steiner, this threat began with an event referred to as the Fall of the Spirits of Darkness, which took place between 1841 and 1879. A group of a certain race of angels known as the Angeloi was said to have received an Ahrimanic coloring, changing their fate and purpose to that of darkness. In preparation for his rulership as the Time Spirit from 1879 onwards, Archangel Michael battled these beings in the etheric world for 38 years, eventually casting them out onto the earth. After this event, the Ahrimanic beings could no longer operate in the etheric realms. They instead were trapped in the material world, only to be able to affect earthly human consciousness. Steiner explained that since Ahriman wishes to bind the consciousness of humans and their free powers of attention to the material realm, this was exactly his plan. Due to this event, humans will be affected by a particular Ahrimanic entity that mirrors the human nervous system and the electronic currents contained within. He warned,
"And the connection will be made between the electromagnetic forces in the human being and the outer machine forces. In a sense, the human being will be able to let his thoughts flow into the machine forces. This doppelganger is cleverer, far cleverer than us. It is highly intelligent, but possesses Mephistophelian intelligence and Ahrimanic intelligence, as well as a very strong will. A will that is much closer to the forces of nature than our own human feeling.
It is no coincidence that later in the 1950s, John von Neumann, an early pioneer of computer technology in America, studied neurology to develop one of the first computers. It is a known fact that he set out to imitate the operations of the live human brain, using it as his model for the computer. This shows us how Steiner had such knowledge of the technological developments of the 20th century that he was able to foresee the coming digital age which would emerge out of the industrial age. Sigismund von Gleich, a prominent German anthroposophist who elaborated on Steiner's theories, once stated,
"Our future task must be to confront the solely earthly mechanical forces that are now starting to be unleashed, and even the sub-early powers of a present and future super technology, since the world is emancipating itself from nature in a downward direction. Whereas the noble and divine aim of all upper powers in the human being is divine fulfillment and perfection, these sub-early powers, in contrast, aim to create a negative sevenfold or ninefold counter-entity to this human being. This is the real Antichrist, who is at the same time the Anti-Humanis."
Sigismund goes on to explain how the world of technology creates a secondary artificial sphere, a mechanical material domain where all spiritual beings connected with the origin of human spiritual evolution are absent, and no harmonic element is present. When we interact with our devices unconsciously, the dark forces involved create this sphere, and the super technologies connected with them draw us downward into the subnatural world. In addition to dangers caused by the soul element being absent in anything it creates, the use of AI in art also causes a detachment from the I in those who utilize it. When an artist creates a painting, he first prepares a canvas that was either purchased with hard-earned money, found or given to him by someone. A musician likewise acquires new strings to put on his instrument, which he likely handles and winds himself. These things add value and strengthen the connection between the soul and the work through the process of creating. The artist goes on to create the work himself, and the I remains attached. The opposite happens when AI is used. Since the transhuman machine's capabilities are nearly endless, the artist's brushstroke or the musician's touch on the fretboard are replaced by lifeless digital processing. As all creative effort is severely diminished, no conscious connection remains between the artist and the work. Thus, the I becomes detached. The use of AI in art is also degenerative toward the I because our creative powers, intuition, intention, and moral constitutions are not only dulled, but essentially handed over to the machine entity. This process weakens the I regarding how it is connected to the formation of memory. Over time, this will become destructive as the connections between one's soul and physical nature will be broken. Since the power of attention will become severely impacted by this, the I will be denied the possibility of connecting properly with the body. as one interacts with AI through devices, performing tasks that would normally be accomplished using their own mind and body. The devices become a sort of artificial self that is completely separated from the soul of the human being. Because of this, AI and its various networks create what could be considered a shadow spirit world that continually feeds on the energy of its unconscious users. Despite these dangers, all is not lost according to Rudolf Steiner. He instructs that to avoid the destructive consequences of this threat, the further evolution of human consciousness depends on us overcoming the darkening linked to materialistic consciousness by our own awakening to the etheric quality of thinking. Technological advancements are an inevitable part of Earth's evolution, and we must take part in them. To cut oneself off from the material world because of the risks of materialism would be what Steiner calls spiritual cowardice. The solution is to strengthen the forces of the soul so that it can actively participate in modern life in a positive way. Because this courageous approach to modern life is necessitated by world karma, what must happen for humanity to survive these challenges is an equal advancement of spiritual science to that of materialistic technology. This is, of course, unfortunately not what we are seeing today. AI is currently being exploited in a one-sided way to darken everything that is spiritual as it binds us to materialism. One may choose whether to believe these theories and predictions, or to take the seemingly mythical events described earlier by Péladan and Steiner as literal or as mystery dramas. One thing is certain: these great minds use these ideas as methods to illustrate the mystical principles of divine reintegration through art and humanity's task of overcoming the materialistic impulses of a future super technology mirroring human consciousness. At the time of recording this, I have just completed a musical work that took over 2 years to compose and create. During this period, I have watched the artistic world around me spiral into descent. While painstakingly rehearsing the performances of original compositions to be recorded in a room littered with scribbled musical scores, failing and trying again repeatedly until my vision is realized, I've observed how thousands of people are now using AI to generate what some call art in minutes. The ridiculous claiming by individuals of things created this way being real original works is another controversial matter entirely. As many will consider this to be a huge advancement and time saver, we must stop to ask, what human element actually exists within these machine-made works? Furthermore, how are we benefiting ourselves and our personal spiritual evolution by not strengthening our own artistic potential? As true art is a soul experience that requires tapping into one's individualism, there can be no individualism or experience of the soul through AI. I protest that since we are of the image of the divine according to the Hermetic belief, the dark entities of materialism will seek to destroy us through AI and transhumanism if it is not used in balance. For an artist to enter them and merge with the transhuman mind during the creative process is for him to give up his own individualism. Remember, the entities behind this technological movement seek to bind our consciousness to the material and to the realm of sub-nature. It is therefore vital that we have a clear understanding of them if we are to find the balance needed to progress. In ancient times, science, religion, and art were one, working together in holy mysteries, enlightening and nurturing the cultures of the earth. Science has since been smothered by the rigid thought of the materialistic age, as religion has been defiled by power-hungry churches and modern dogma. Art has remained mostly intact, but the threat of its demise has now risen. Whether the sacred ideal behind a piece of ensouled art fails to be embodied because of the corruption of transhuman practices, or one has fallen prey to the electronic doppelgänger fated to be humanity's downfall, is up to the discretion of each individual. While my intention of giving this lecture is to enlighten my brothers and sisters of these revelations and encourage them to nurture their own artistic potential rather than giving in to the popular trends of transhumanism, it has served as a kind of Ahrimanic exorcism for myself as well, a reminder of the subconscious attachment to the material and its spiritual downfalls. I hope this has inspired you to understand artistic creation as a sacred act of the soul rather than a mundane mechanical process, and to view yourself and your own spiritual evolution as a divine masterpiece in progress.